In the shadow of the falls, drenched by its spray, they realize how powerful it really is.
Looking at an elevation that's running a mile high. You know, in that book that Charles Brewer put together.
Rudy Trufino, or Jungle Rudy as he is universally known, is the expedition's guide. He has lived near the falls for 30 years, and the pilots are counting on his first-hand knowledge of the area.
The chopper lifted us up onto the top of the Tepui, and we tested the wind direction with some small helium balloons. On his way back, the pilot flew us along the course of the river that feeds the falls. 1 minute, the ground right underneath us was rushing by at 100 miles an hour. Just then, as we shot past the lip of the falls, the ground dropped away, and everything was suddenly still.
Well, it'd be good to have the helicopter come up and try its thing out, you know, before that stuff comes in. Yeah, you should radio down, have the helicopter come up and do a spin, a reconnaissance.
Okay, Eladio, we need a radio, and then
yeah, just have it come up, have them do their circling thing, and go back. But in other words, for them to find out that they can fly up here.
Yeah.
You go to 20,000.
How high is he?
He's about 15 right now.
The helicopter can fly here, but it is at the limits of its operating specs. The expedition cannot hope for rescue by air if something goes wrong during the first part of the flight. So Delano has engaged a local Andean rescue team to accompany the expedition. Now, as the crew begins moving the cumbersome equipment down a scree slope to the launch site, only these climbers are unaffected by the altitude.
Sigan subiendo, muchachos, sigan subiendo. Bueno, vamos a darle chola para arriba, la cámara.
The wind has come up, and a bank of clouds begins moving in from the east. There will be no flying today, and the last cable car is left. The crew will have to remain on this summit until tomorrow morning. A balloon envelope is made of material that is both tough and light, but it is not designed to be deployed over a field of sharp rocks. Here, there is no choice. Dwarfed by the scale of the peaks, the balloons slowly take shape in the high mountain air, their bright fabric like the tents of a wayward circus. In this bleak landscape, only they and their crews seem to be alive.
Come up and keep it down, okay? Hands on the basket.
There weren't really enough people to hold the balloon down against the wind, and Brian and Jorge took off across the island with the half-inflated balloon acting as a huge sail. Brian later called this a running launch, but that was maybe too dignified a name. What it really was a race to see if we could get the balloon up before we ran out of island. We lost.
helicopter plucks the crew out of the water easily enough, but the balloon envelope sinks quickly and is soon enfolding tons of water beneath the surface. The mysterious holes were once great underground caverns whose roofs have collapsed. One is a shallow trench running off the edge of the plateau. The other two are as neatly carved as if they had been scooped out of a green lawn with a spade. The largest of the holes, called Brewer's Hole after the Venezuelan naturalist who first explored it, is 1,000 feet deep and 1,000 feet wide. The expedition is fortunate enough to have found a campsite next to a small stream, and now Delano is eager to make a reconnaissance flight to the bottom of the hole. The helicopter cannot land at the bottom, so Kathy and Jorge will fly in, suspended inside a rope birdcage. They pretend to be nonchalant, but Kathy's expression as they descend into the hole reveals a woman with her mind wonderfully focused.
Down here, the air was oppressive and still. I felt as if we were disturbing some kind of equilibrium. The floor of the hole was rough. Great hunks of rock were stacked against each other. We took 2 steps forward and 3 steps down.
Before Delano's visit, only 12 men had stood at the bottom of this hole. When they had looked up, they had seen, as Delano and Kathy now did, one of the rarest sights on Earth, a perfect circle of sky held within the irregular rock walls.
Once the gear, the equipment, everybody was in place to make the flight, then of course we had to rely on the experience of Brian and Kathy to get us out of the hole and to get us flying into the Sarisariñama area.
The plan calls for Delano and Brian to inflate the smaller balloon here in the depths of the hole. They will have to unroll the 80-foot envelope over the rough, uneven surface and keep it from being torn as it fills with air. The hopes of the expedition now fasten on Kathy. She has finally gotten her balloon inflated, and slowly she rises into the air, thinking she is joining Brian in flight.
As soon as I cleared the trees, I could see Brian's balloon plastered all over the treetops right in my flight path. Why had he put down? I didn't have long to think about it. Suddenly, I was being forced lower by a fierce downdraft.
Kathy is being hit by the same perverse wind that grounded Brian. But there is another problem. Kathy has a film cameraman slung outboard in a harness seat, and his control line snags. Like a human anchor, he brings the great balloon to a halt.
Wait, right.
You'll hurt yourself! He's on a limb. What about the rest?
Kathy cuts him free, but as her balloon begins to rise again, she sees that she is heading for the edge of the Tepui. Quickly, she reviews her situation. She is exhausted from wrestling her balloon aloft against the wind. She has already been driven once into the trees. She has had to abandon her cameraman, and now the edge of the plateau is approaching. She has had enough. Prudently, she decides to end her flight. Delano has come a long way from his initial innocent flight up Angel Falls, and he has experienced enough now to appreciate how much he has accomplished. This expedition has been a bittersweet success. Despite his momentary disappointment at the tantalizingly short flights, Delano knows what he has had to overcome in order to launch and fly a balloon from the depths of the Great Hole.